Everyone loves a warm beverage around the holidays. Cup of cocoa, mulled wine, hot Dr. Pepper. Yes, in the late 1960s, the holiday beverage of choice was hot Dr. Pepper. This time on Drinking History. So last week I posted this vintage ad for hot Dr. Pepper, and the reaction was so positive and rather inquisitive that I just had to try it out for myself. Anyway, the original recipe is pretty basic, and I'll let Dick Clark explain it to you.
Just heat Dr. Pepper in a saucepan till it steams, then pour over a thin slice of lemon. That's a hot idea. Yes, Dr. Pepper is delicious cold or hot.
Thanks, Dick. And I love this commercial because I feel like he's talking directly to me.
Right, Max? Hot idea.
Now, in subsequent decades, Dr. Pepper did give a few more directions, like the fact that it should be heated to 180 degrees Fahrenheit, and that because of the carbonation, it might look like it's boiling, but it is not actually boiling. But really, that's it. So for this recipe, all you need is some Dr. Pepper and a lemon. Just pour the Dr. Pepper into a saucepan, set it over medium heat, and bring it up to that 180 degrees Fahrenheit. Then cut the lemon, set a slice in a mug or cup, then ladle in some of that hot doc. That's what the kids are going to call it when this takes off, because I just know that it will. So yeah, here's our hot Dr. Pepper. Let's give it a taste. It is hot. It is flat as well. It's not bad. It tastes exactly like what it says. It tastes like hot Dr. Pepper. I looked online and a lot of people were like, oh, the lemon makes all the difference. No, it just tastes like Dr. Pepper, but flat and hot. And I like Dr. Pepper, so I don't mind this, but it's not necessarily what I would go for. Really, what it kind of reminds me of is like a sweet herbal tea. Like if you took sweet tea and heated it up, it'd be the same. Also, you can make this with Diet Dr. Pepper. They actually had Diet Dr. Pepper back in the 60s, and one of the original commercials says that you can use Diet Dr. Pepper. I kind of feel like this is the sort of drink that Dylan Hollis would make on his show. I don't know if you know Dylan Hollis, but he does a lot of kind of vintage recipes. I feel like this would be good for him. Dylan, if you're watching, make some hot Dr. Pepper. So there isn't really a great deal of history about this drink, but there is a little bit, so I will cover it. But I first wanted to remind you that the Tasting History Cookbook makes a wonderful last-minute holiday gift for the tastorians in your life, and it is filled with a lot of history and more fleshed-out recipes than the one for hot Dr. Pepper. Also, I would love it if you leave a review of the book wherever you got it. It really, really helps out a lot. So thank you so much, and now some history of hot Dr. Pepper. The story of Dr. Pepper starts at Morrison's Old Corner Drugstore in Waco, Texas in 1885. But the man who came up with the drink was not in fact named Dr. Pepper, but rather it was a pharmacist who worked at the drugstore named Charles Alderton. And he served it to all the people coming in, and they would call it Waco. But his boss, Wade Morrison, well, he wanted to give it a proper name, so he named it after Dr. Charles Pepper from Virginia, not Texas, who was the father of a girl that he had once been in love with. Seems kind of weird. Also, the doctor originally had a period after it, Dr. Pepper, which is grammatically correct, but in the 1950s they dropped it, and nobody knows why. Now, the drink may have started in the 1880s and became pretty popular in the Waco area, but it really took off in 1904 when it debuted at the St. Louis World's Fair. This was also the first time most people ever saw hot dogs and hamburgers on buns, and it's the first time that the ice cream cone was served en masse, so it's a great moment in food history. Now, Dr. Pepper was billed as the king of beverages and as a healthful tonic free of the caffeine that was in most other sodas of the day. Instead, it was the sugar that gave you that spark of energy. And in the 1930s, there was a research study done that said that most people have a lull in their energy around the hours of 10 a.m., 2 p.m., and 4 p.m. So Dr. Pepper capitalized on that and said, drink a bite to eat at 10, 2, and 4. That was actually something that my grandpa used to say every time us kids wanted a Dr. Pepper. Though we would never actually have Dr. Pepper because my grandparents wouldn't buy the name brand, so usually it was either Mr. Pibb or Dr. Thunder from Walmart. There's also a drink called Dr. Foots, which is a soda from the Svinkel family brewers in the Netherlands. And I love that on their website, they treat it like it's a fine wine, saying it has a sweet nose of marzipan, cola, and cherries. And for pairing options, it suggests popcorn, chips, and American-style fast food. And while Dr. Foots isn't exactly related to Dr. Pepper, except for the fact that they both seem to have gone to Soda Medical School, the name Foots is a perfect segue into Hot Dr. Pepper because one of the great champions of this warm winter beverage was named Foots. Woodrow Wilson Clements got the nickname Foots in high school because he had oddly shaped toes. Seems a little cruel that they would give him a nickname based on something he was probably kind of sensitive about. I think it's kind of like Captain Hook. There's no way that Hook was actually his last name, but then he got a hook, and everybody called him Captain Hook. Not very nice. Anyway, Foots Clements didn't seem to mind the nickname, and so that's what he went by when he started working at the Dr. Pepper Company in 1942. And eventually he would actually become CEO and chairman of the board. But in the late 60s, he was a sales executive when he realized that during the summer, the Friendly Pepper-Upper had fantastic sales that then plummeted along with the temperature. And so the marketing department came up with this amazing idea. What if our cold beverage was hot? Thus born was Hot Dr. Pepper. They pushed the stuff like crazy. Ads and television commercials were all over the place. One early commercial saying that
guests swing right into the holiday mood with distinctively different Hot Dr. Pepper. Today, the holiday favorite of the proud crowd. That Hot Dr. Pepper difference.
Not really sure what the proud crowd was, but sounds like a good crowd to be in. Anyway, they started selling the stuff at sporting events and even had restaurants selling it on their menu. They also hired Dick Clark to be the drink's spokesman. They even offered glasses specially designed for Hot Dr. Pepper, and for only $2.50 that you had to send in as a check or money order, you would receive 4 distinctive Hot Dr. Pepper cups. And on that post that I posted last week, one viewer commented that in the 1970s, she used to work at the Rose Bowl parade, the Tournament of Roses parade, putting roses into all of the floats. And it was really, really cold in there. And so the Dr. Pepper float would give out Hot Dr. Pepper. They had like big canisters of Hot Dr. Pepper to keep all the workers warm. I love that. But alas, as much as Dr. Pepper tried to make Hot Dr. Pepper a thing, the US was like,
stop trying to make
Hot Dr. Pepper
happen. It's not going to happen.
It did make a brief appearance in the classic Brendan Fraser film, Blast from the Past from 1999, when Christopher Walken offered it up.
Hot Dr. Pepper, your favorite.
But again, that was supposed to be, as the title of the movie would suggest, in the past. And today, Hot Dr. Pepper is kind of a novelty in some parts of the South. I guess people drink it sometimes when they're not feeling well. But mostly, it's not around anymore, except in my house, where I have some Hot Dr. Pepper. And I made 4 cans of this stuff. You don't need to do that, but you should make it because it's really, really easy and kind of cool, you know? It's Hot Dr. Pepper. Yeah. Anyway, make sure to like, subscribe, check out the Tasting History Cookbook, and I'll see you next time on Drinking History.
Relax, refresh, enjoy it now.
Hot Dr. Pepper.
It's Dr. Pepper time.